Section 2 of Fiander's Widow by M. E. Francis. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Part 1. The Sleeping Beauty. Chapter 1. Oh, sir, the good die first. Wordsworth. Ah, Nichol's now laid in his grave, by't side of his father and mother. The world not frae death could yin save. We a gang off, teen after t'other. A Cumberland Ballad. Sunday noontide, and a warm Sunday too. The little congregation pouring out of the ivy-grown church in the hollow seemed to have found the heat within oppressive. The men were wiping their moist brows previous to assuming the hard, uncompromising hats which alone could do justice to the day, and the women fanned themselves with their clean white handkerchiefs, or sniffed ostentatiously at the squat, oddly shaped bottles of smelling salts, or nosegays of jessamine and southernwood, with which they had provided themselves. In the village proper, sundry non-churchgoers waited the return of their more pious brethren. One or two lads sat expectantly on stiles, on the look-out for their respective sweethearts, whom they would escort homewards, and with whom they would possibly make appointments for a stroll at some later hour of the day. Children, with important faces, might be seen returning from the bakehouse, carefully carrying the Sunday dinner covered with a clean cloth, and a few older men and women stood about their doorsteps or leaned over their garden gates, with the intention of waylaying their homeward-bound neighbours and extracting from them items concerning a very important event which had recently taken place in the vicinity. One very fat old lady, propping herself with difficulty against the lintel of her door, hailed her opposite neighbour eagerly. "Good day, Mrs. Paddock. Did you chance to notice if master ever gone by yet?" "Nay, he haven't a come this way. Not so far as I know," returned the other. "They do say he takes on terrible about poor Mr. Fiander." "Ah," said the first speaker with a long-drawn breath, "he'd be like to. I do low, seeing what friends they was. Folks to say as Fiander a very like left him summat." "Nay, nay, he'll leave it all in a lump to she. He thought the world of the missus. He'll be sure to ha' left it to she, wi'out she marries again. Then, very like, Mr. Sharp'll come in. Poor Mr. Fiander! 'Tis a sad thing to ha' ne'er a chick nor child to leave your money to. Ah, sure, 'tis a pity they didn't have no children. I reckon Mr. Fiander looked to have 'em, seeing as he'd picked out such a fine shapely maid. He were a fine man too, though he were getting into years, to be sure, when he wed her. Not but what a body had expected the old gentleman to last a good bit longer. 62 they'd say he were. Well, and that's no age to speak on. Lord, I were that upset when I heard he were took, I'm not the better of it yet. Aye, 'tis a terrible visitation. All as has hearts must feel it. I do assure you, Mrs. Belbin, I've scarce closed my eyes since, and when I do drop off towards morning I do dream. 'Tis fearful what I do dream. This very night, I tell ye, I thought the end had come, and we was all a being judged on in church. The Lord A'mighty hisself was a sitting up in gallery a judging of we." "Bless me," interrupted Mrs. Belbin. "And what were A'mighty God like to look on, Mrs. Paddock?" "Oh, he were beautiful, with broad large features and a very piercing eye, but he had a beautiful smile. I thought if he can understand that some was a going up to the right and some to the left. Yes, we was all being judged, taking our turns, Squire first, and then his lady, and then all the young ladies and gentlemen a going up, one after t'other, and being judged." "Well, well," commented Mrs. Belbin, throwing up her eyes and hands. "All so natural like, wasn't it?" She had evidently been much impressed by the strict order of precedence observed by the actors in this visionary drama. "Well, then I seed farmers a going up." "Did you see poor Farmer Fiander?" inquired the other eagerly. "Nay, nay, he weren't there, strange to say. 'Twould have been natural to see him being dead, you know, but he weren't there. But I see master being judged." "Did you now, and where did he go? He's a good man, he'd be like to go up'ards. Were Anworthy there, the butcher, I mean? I wonder what the Almighty 'd say to the short waits that he do give us poor folk." "Nay, I didn't see him. for it were coming nigh my turn, and I were that afeard I couldn't think o' nothing else. And when I did get up to walk up under gallery, I thought my legs did give way, and down I plumped, and that did awaken me up. Well, it was a wonderful dream, Mrs. Paddock. I'm not surprised as you be feeling a bit poorly to-day. 'Tis astonishing what folk do dream when they're upset. I do assure you, when my stomach's a bit out of order, I'm haggard all night. Last Sunday 'twas, I did dream I seed a great big toad sitting on pillar, and I hollered out and hit at him, and Belbin he cotched me by the hand. Good gracious, says he, what be thumping me like that for? Why, says I, bain't there a toad on pillar? Nay, now, he says, there's nothing at all, but you've a hit me such a crack upon the chops that I'll lay I'll have the toothache for a week. I'd never go for to say as dreams didn't mean summat though, said Mrs. Paddock. Aye, I've great faith in dreams and tokens and such. You mind old Maria Gillingham? Folks always used to think of her a bit of a witch, but she never did nobody much harm seemingly. It were but the day before she dies as I did meet her. You look poorly, Maria, says I. I be like to be poorly, Mrs. Paddock, she said. I'm near my end, she says. I've had a token. You don't tell me, says I. Yes, she said. I were sitting in chimney corner just now, and 3 great blue bottles did come flying in with crape upon their wings, and they did fly 3 times round my head, and they did say, soon gone, soon gone, soon gone. Ah, commented Mrs. Belbin, and she were soon gone, weren't she? She were, agreed Mrs. Paddock lugubriously. They did find her lying with her head under the table next day, stone dead. But here's Rose Bundy a-coming down the road. Well, Rose, was the widow in church? Aye, I seed her, cried Rose, a fat, red-cheeked girl, with round black eyes, at this moment gleaming with excitement. She did have on such lovely weeds. You never saw such weeds. There was crape on 'em very nigh all over. She did have a great long fall as did come to her knees very near, and another much the same hanging down at the back of her bonnet. And her skirt was covered with crape, and I think there was truly more black than white to her handkercher. Ah, it was a-going all the time under her veil, first her eyes and then her nose. Poor thing, she do seem to feel her loss dreadful. And well she may, said Mrs. Paddock emphatically. A good husband, same as Fiander, bain't to be picked up every day. Why, he was but an old man, retorted the girl. Mrs. Fiander'll soon have plenty of young chaps a come to court her, they'd say, as Mr. Fiander a left her every single penny he had, to do what she likes with. She'll soon take up with some smart young feller. It isn't natural to expect a handsome young body same as her to go on fretting for ever after an old man, let him be so good as he may. Nay now, cried Mrs. Belbin authoritatively. 'Twill be this way, as you'll soon see. Mr. Fiander will ha' left the widow his money and farm and all, as long as she do be a widow. But if she goes for to change her state, why then of course it'll go to somebody else. There never was a man living, and more particularly an old one, as could make up his mind to leave his money behind him for a woman to spend on another man. That'll be it, you'll find. Mrs. Fiander'll keep her money as long as she to keep her mourning. Here be master now, announced her opposite neighbour, craning her head a little further out of the doorway. The poor man, he do look upset and sorrowful. The eyes of all the little party fixed themselves on the approaching figure. Mr. Sharp was clad in Sunday gear of prosperous broadcloth, and wore, somewhat on the back of his head, a tall hat so antiquated as to shape, and so shaggy as to texture, that the material of which it was composed may possibly have been beaver. His large face was at that moment absolutely devoid of all expression. Mrs. Paddock's remark, therefore, seemed to be dictated by a somewhat lively imagination. He nodded absently as the women greeted him, which they did very respectfully, as both their husbands worked under him, but wheeled round after he had passed the group to address Mrs. Paddock. I'll take those chickens off you, as you was a-speaking of, if you'll fetch them up to my place to week. The fox have took a lot of mine, and I be loath to disappoint my customers. I'll fetch them up, sir, so soon as I can. These be terrible times, Mr. Sharp, bain't they? Such losses as we've had last week. The fox he've been terrible mischievous, and poor Mr. Fiander, he were took very unexpected, weren't he? Ah, agreed Mr. Sharp. You'll be the one to miss him, sir. As we were saying, Mrs. Belbin and me, Mr. Sharp will be the one to miss him. You did used to go there every Sunday regular, Mr. Sharp, didn't you? Ah, agreed the farmer again. His large face seemed just as expressionless as before, but a close observer might have detected a sudden suffusion of colour to the eyelids. "They do say as Mrs. Fiander be taking on terrible," put in Mrs. Belbin, folding her arms across her ample bosom and settling herself for a good chat with an air of melancholy enjoyment. "She is a nice young woman, yes, she's that. And the marriage did turn out wonderful well, though folks did think it a bit foolish of Mr. Fiander to choose such a young maid at his time of life. But he was lonesome, poor man, losing his first wife so long ago, and the children dying so young, and his second missus being took too. But, well, as I do say, the last marriage turned out wonderful well. There was never a word said against Mrs. Fiander." "There was never a word to be said," returned Mr. Sharp somewhat sternly. "Yes, just what I do say," chimed in Mrs. Paddock. "His choice was a good un. She be a nice body, Mrs. Fiander be." "Ah," agreed the farmer, "I do 'low she be a nice plain young woman. Her husband have approved that he did think his choice a good un, for he've left her everything as he had in the world." "But not if she marries again, sir, sure," cried both the women together. "Lord," added Mrs. Belbin, "he'd never a been such a Sammy as to let her keep everything if she goes for to take another man. She be left house and farm, stock and money, unconditional," returned Mr. Sharp emphatically, and he passed on, leaving the gossips aghast. End of section 2.